Greetings! Welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts. Thank you so much for watching. It's 9 a.m. here on the West Coast, and it's lunchtime over on the East Coast, and anywhere in between there for the other time zones here in the U.S. And if you're watching abroad or internationally, then it could be any time. So just thank you so much for taking the time to check things out. And I wanted to make a quick mention that I've actually got 2 live streams today. So at noon here on the West Coast, I will be doing another live stream with 2 creatives from Germany that are going to be joining me from the Film Ingenium. And then tomorrow, Friday at 5 p.m., I will have the creatives from Life is Easy from New Zealand. We did an interview, that was a couple weeks ago, and they will be joining me again because we have the other co-creator has time in her schedule to join us. So that's going to be awesome. And that's at 5 p.m. West Coast time on Friday. And then 7 p.m. West Coast on Friday, we do the Fun Table Round 5. I can get my hand in here. And the guests are excited to do that. And if you're not familiar with the Fun Table, that's where we just kind of kick off our shoes, have a drink or two. And I ask some questions from the internet to guests that were previously on the Alice virtual tour. So I've got a repeat offender coming back, and I have someone brand new who's going to be joining me, and that's 7 p.m. again on the West Coast time. And I'm trying to make that Fun Table Fridays, where we do it every Friday, and we'll kind of see if that's going to work. We already have everybody booked for next Friday, and then the Friday after that is Labor Day weekend, so I'm not sure if we're going to be scheduled to do one then or just going to wait till the following week into September. But I've been having a lot of fun with those, and that's what it's all about. So that's what's coming up for the next 2 days here with Eclectic Arts. And let's get to this. My guests today, plural, are actors, producers, and writers in the entertainment industry. He is known for such films as X-Men, Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2, and Troy. She is known for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Top Cow Comics, and Darby Pop Publishing. Together, they have produced, written, and starred in Compound Fracture, which was re-released about a week and a half ago. And also this year, they put out Penance Lane, finally. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Tyler and RENAE Geerlings. Hi there. Let's see here. I'm showing that your mic is muted for some reason.
There we go. How's that?
Hey, there we go. I can hear you perfect. How you guys doing over there in Georgia?
Good, good.
Hot.
Okay. What I've been asking all the guests during this time of doing these virtual interviews is just with current things. I mean, how have things been for you during the pandemic time? It's been different for everybody. And sometimes it's been exactly the same, depending.
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, it was pretty slow, but we're working on a TV series right now that we're developing. But we're starting to see things pick up a little bit. I mean, we've had several auditions pop up for both of us.
Things are starting back.
Yeah,
we'll see.
things are starting back. They don't know when they're going to shoot, but they're doing the process, the casting process. So it's been interesting. It's good to get back to a little bit of a normal.
I do want to point out that it was actually in some ways maybe a little boon because people were looking for things to stream, and Penance Lane came out, and then Compound Fracture happened to be re-released. We thought quarantine would be over long before Compound Fracture was out, so that's kind of a bittersweet.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting with this time that I know from talking with all the other guests from the film industry and from music and the arts and all that kind of thing, that some people have not had any opportunity to do anything based on where they're located. And other people, yeah, it's just like what you said. This time, people are watching all kinds of things on Netflix. They're looking at video on demand, and it's been a chance to actually get an audience, a bigger audience for something that maybe wouldn't have maybe found it if things were pre-pandemic time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's been pretty slow up until just probably the last few weeks that it's starting to pick up again.
Yeah.
But, okay.
I can tell you that he gets a little stir crazy. So
I always got to be doing something. So.
So Tyler, do you start going back into your wrestling days and start wanting to take people down? Or?
No, but I do get a little antsy around the house. You know, it's we're lucky, you know, we're pretty well equipped here, set up. You know, we've got a gym here, so I can hit the gym and take out some frustration. I just got out of I just got out of the hot tub and steam shower, so it's all good.
But I do have to be careful because I call him the Viking Martha Stewart. And when he starts to get a little antsy, he always wants to do like a huge house project. So I have to sort of hold the reins on that. Don't hit the ceiling.
The Viking Martha Stewart. I have to remember that.
Sure.
And you kind of mentioned, let's talk about this, the re-release of Compound Fracture. I mean, I met you guys back in 2013. You were doing the road show for the film, doing all the grassroots kind of thing. I saw the screening at the Varsity here in Seattle. And like I mentioned, I still have my bracelet from that screening. And I have my DVD that I bought. So for people that aren't familiar with the film, let's start with what's right in front of us. So what happened with the film that it needed to be re-released? Like, did it go into some sort of limbo for some reason, or what happened?
Yeah. What happened is we did the tour, the kind of Grindhouse tour, and then our distributor released it, and about a few weeks to a month later, the sub-distributor Alchemy went bankrupt. So everything was tied up in this bankruptcy, and it just has been sitting in a black hole for these years, 5 years. And now we finally got the rights back to it so that we can re-release it. It was out on a few platforms back then, but not as many as it deserved. And so that's why we're re-releasing it to get it out there and let people take a look at it.
Well, also at that time, I think there weren't as many platforms. So, it's kind of an opportunity to put it out there a little more widely.
Okay. And for those out there that haven't seen the film, I really genuinely loved it when I saw it. I think it's something that really showcases the acting in it. And I think some people, when they saw the names with Tyler and Derek and Muse, that they thought, oh, it's going to be a slasher. It's going to be, what you've done in the past. But it's really not that at all. You really have to think about it. And I think that's one of the things that I love, that you can watch it several times and get different things out of the film.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually, when the Haunting of Hill House came out, I kept telling everybody, I was like, I love this movie. I love this movie. Or this TV series. Kept telling everybody, you got to watch it. You got to watch it. You got to watch it. And then I was explaining it to someone someday, and I went, oh my gosh, like that's, if Compound Fracture had millions of dollars, that's what we wanted to do. Yeah. So for me, it's more about, I have a theater background. So for me, things always come back to character, and I tend to kind of hover around things that have to do with history and how events domino into the next events. And this one is really about a family, a very dysfunctional family, where there is a history of keeping the family together at any cost. And that includes some things that are a little abusive and possibly a little scarring. That was a pun. But in this film, what we're really exploring is how that affects the future generations, and how that kind of cycle of abuse affects the children and then the grandchildren of someone who's been doing that. And even in this one, people who come into the family, the people who enter into the family, how they deal with that. But it's a family drama wrapped in a ghost story, with some fairly horrific elements.
Yeah, I remember seeing the panel on the Friday at Crypticon Seattle that the three of you, because Derek was with you at the time, and he showed like, I don't know, it was maybe like 7 minutes from the film. And it's exactly what you just said. It kind of showed this ghost story element that was kind of creepy, and then it showed some kind of like, oh my gosh, kind of stuff in terms of the horror element. And it was just a really nice mix, and that's what immediately hooked me into it. And both of you co-wrote the film. So what was the inspiration for it? Where did that the ideas kind of come from?
Well, we were originally going to do our second film first, but then we wanted to do a little smaller project, more contained. So we figured that we would just set one in a house, and that's what we came up with.
Yeah, there were actually a couple stories that we pulled from, things that we heard that we thought, oh, that's
Creepy
crazy or
yeah,
creepy, or
that could
wouldn't that
never
make a great
happen.
movie? I mean, that's what you hear a lot of times. Wouldn't that make a great movie? And then you put some stuff together and it does.
Okay, and kind of looking back, and for every creative person, they kind of have different things about when they look back at their work. Is there anything that you would change about that film?
For me, I get to the point where I'm done with it and I move on. The one that holds on to a lot of things is Renee, like that. She's constantly going back and reassessing, and
every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, we just could have had more money in that scene. Oh, if we just could have had an extra day of shooting in that scene. Oh, you know what that scene needs? So yeah, it took me a long time to be able to watch it. And Tyler used to laugh because the Grindhouse tour was kind of like every night I'd be like, I gotta leave. I can't sit and watch this. So it took me a long time to be able to sit and watch that movie without my preconceived notions of what I intended in the script, or what we meant to get on the day of shooting. But there's a phrase: the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit are three different things, and that's, in my experience, that's completely true.
Well, and we were very close to it during the editing process. So, I mean, every day we were watching it, rewatching it, watching it. And it was kind of nice to be able to put it to bed for a little bit after that Grindhouse tour. Now to release it, we're like, oh, okay, that's, it turned out pretty good. And it's getting a pretty good reception. So that's making us happy.
That's good. And yeah, I think just like for anybody, that when you're around something so much and so close, it's your baby, basically, that when you have a chance of distance from it, then yeah, your perspective could potentially change. I know that's even for me with some of the writing that I do. It's like as soon as I look at it, it's like, man, that sucks or something. And then if I come back to it, maybe in a week later, it's like, no, there's something good with this. There's just other parts I have to fix. So
I think as a creator or an artist, I remember actually having a talk with Dave Finch about this, who's an artist at Top Cow, and he was saying it's a funny thing about being a true creative is that when you do something, it's for you. If you're doing your job right, when you come back to it in a couple months, you should have already progressed to a point where you look at it with this critical eye of, oh, if I could do that over again, I'd do it better. And it's kind of an inherent torture in someone who's an artist, because you're always striving to be better. And in theory, hopefully you are improving. So your perspective changes on what you did. So there's that.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's very well said. And yeah, I think we're kind of our own worst critics at times, but then that's also kind of part of the process of how you get better too.
Exactly.
So let's kind of move into Penance Lane, because this kind of actually brings me how I got reconnected with both of you. That I think it was through social media that this film was finally coming out. Because I remember after seeing Compound Fracture, I was like,
second time you've used that word, Mark, finally. What's that?
Sorry. It was like, I kept thinking after seeing Compound Fracture, it was like, well, it'll probably be a couple years at least, so maybe 2015, 2016, Penance Lane will come out. And then it just kind of disappeared from the map, at least from my radar. And then again, social media wise, this year, I saw something. I said, is that what I think it is? That it's actually, it's Penance Lane. So I remember I reached out to Renee about, I've done a lot of things since I originally saw Compound Fracture 7 years ago. So it's like, is there any way I can see this, review it, do something? And that actually put me onto a whole other track. So can you kind of talk about that storyline too? Was it also kind of stuck in limbo? Was it a money thing, everything under the sun?
Yeah, we planned on shooting it in North Carolina originally. And then, so we went down and scouted locations. And then as we were ready to start shooting, one of our investors had to pull out. So then we were back to the drawing board. And we were thinking about Canada. We were thinking about other locations. Finally, I just purchased the house here in Atlanta, and I said, let's just go and shoot it in Atlanta for what we have and make it happen. Just do it. So we ended up filming it in our basement. The interior of the house is our basement of our house. We have since revamped it.
We're sitting in the set right now.
Yeah, we're actually sitting in the living room of where the living room of the house. The creepy
Don't
house.
tell our HOAs.
Yeah. But, so then we just decided to do it here, and I called in a lot of favors. I called, Booker T, Dallas Page, we called in John Schneider.
Ben Jensen did the stunts,
Ben
who worked
Jensen
with Tyler on X-Men.
On the X-Men, on the original X-Men. It was great to reunite with him.
Scout.
Scout, Taylor Compton was in it.
You said Dan Roebuck already, right?
Dan Roebuck.
John Schneider.
We said that.
You said that.
And,
I don't listen to you.
So I know. So then, we just pulled it all together. And then once we got it in the can, we were like, do we even have a movie here? So then we started doing our original rough cut, and it took a little bit of time, and we had to do some re-edits and reassessing of it, and had to basically on the fly rewrite the whole last third of the film in the editing room, because we didn't have some things and stuff like that. So that's why it took a little bit longer.
Well, the other thing is too,
it came out okay.
We were really lucky with some people who helped us on post, but they were friends, and so they're giving you the friend deal to do your independent feature, but they have to do their more lucrative jobs in between. So that also causes a little bit of
the day
delays,
job, so to say, so to speak. Yeah.
So it was one of those things where we started this film before Compound Fracture, and we ended it a lot further after Compound Fracture. But it was just one of those things where this is how indie film dies. So many people deal with these problems. You lose investors, that wasn't the first time we lost our investor. We actually lost our first investor when the housing market crashed before Compound Fracture. Then we lost a second investor. So this is how indie films don't make it. But, we kind of call all of our films the little film that could, because we're just tenacious. We're like, well, we'll just figure it out. We don't have that anymore. Okay, well, what do we have? And it takes time, but you got to get it done.
Yeah, and hopefully we're working our way up and building on to be able to get the bigger budgets going. We're in the process of developing a TV series now called The Last Spartan, and hopefully we're going to be able to go into pre-production on that before the end of the year.
Okay, no, that's awesome, and I think when you're talking about being an independent filmmakers, that it goes right along for me being when I've been on this virtual tour with Alice, the band from LA, because they're DIY. So they were supposed to be physically on a tour, but then COVID happened, and so instead of like just sitting home doing nothing, they're like, well, let's try to do a virtual tour and actually stream these in the cities we were supposed to be in, bring the bands out. Then they got in contact with me about, Mark, we love what you do. Can you open the shows? And it was new for everybody. So there's a learning curve, all that kind of thing. But it was like, we're going to find a way to make this happen. We're not just going to just let it die.
I think sometimes it works out for the best. I mean, what's that story about your favorite movie, Jaws? The shark was supposed to feature much more heavily in the film, and it just didn't work. And in the end, it ended up being the best thing, because the mystery of the shark is what really makes that movie terrifying. So sometimes you get lightning in a bottle and things end up working out for the best. And that's how we try to look at it.
Well, and the one thing that I've realized being in this business, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure out what that reasoning is and why it's happening. But then you just have to be able to capitalize on it and move forward, and that's what we've been able to do, luckily. So, hopefully we'll be able to keep going.
Yeah, and Renae, I wanted to ask you specifically about your character in Penance Lane, because I loved your character of Precious, and I don't know if you guys have any kind of plans to do a sequel or a spinoff or something with that character, but it just seems like there's a story there to be told. But how did you kind of come up with Precious, and then also from the acting side of it, how did you approach the character?
Well, so in the original script from Munir, the whole storyline of her and her daughter, that was not a part of the original script. That was actually one of the things that I added, because again, I like multi-layered characters. I like characters who are villains, but maybe they have a good reason for what they're doing, or and I also thought it would be cool if the character of Crimson has to kind of get help from someone in the house, and she sees in him someone who reminds her of her husband and may be able to help her. But again, at the end of the film, when she has the opportunity to leave she doesn't. Spoilers. She doesn't. She chooses to stay because she sees herself as so damaged that she decides to stay in the house. And that, for me, is the tragedy in that film. Like, everything else is a happy ending, but that's the true tragedy in that film. How did I approach the character in terms of acting? I really wanted her to be the one who was the least animalistic. She's the one who they actually did themselves a disservice by holding her daughter over her, because you can't break a mother who's doing everything she can to protect her child. There's no way that girl is, her character is going to go into the bye-bye land that the other characters have gone into, because they've just given up, because she has something to do and something to protect. So she is the one who's still in there with one priority, one directive, and that's just to do anything she can to be conscious of protecting her daughter. So that's really what I'm looking at. Every scene is about her looking for a way out, looking for a way to maintain her safety and play the game, while always looking for a way to be able to somehow help her daughter. And in the end, when she has an opportunity to go, because that's the best thing she can do for her daughter.
Mm-hmm. And I was curious, what kind of ideas did you have until you ended up with the final look of the character with the mask and that kind of thing? Were you looking at other ideas, like just using makeup or other things?
No, in fact, actually, when you look back at a film and you go, that mask is supposed to be a cracked, beautiful woman's face. But it was one of the things that in the shuffle, it kind of showed up on set, and it was a child's mask. And so it ended up being more grotesque than anything. The idea was that it was supposed to be a shattered, beautiful face over top of a shattered, beautiful face. And in the end, we had originally had her taking the mask off. It was a little too Phantom of the Opera, though, and just practically it didn't work as well. So the mask never comes off her face. You never see the damage that's done under there. But I think it's the staples into the face are pretty grotesque.
I would agree. And then Tyler, you, like you mentioned, that you have DDP there, and then Booker T were in there. What was it like working with pro wrestlers in a film setting?
It was fantastic. A great opportunity to reunite with these guys. I'd worked with Booker in the 80s and 90s, and when we were dealing with this, I thought, who would be the best shooter? And I thought, Booker, and it's the first feature that Booker has ever done. And he just came and did a great job. It was fantastic working with him. And I'm looking forward to working with him again.
He's just, he brings so much essence and nuance to a character, that it's like, you just got to watch him. You just want to watch him on screen.
Yeah, and that charisma, everything just kind of comes out of him. So your eye just kind of like, where is he? Every time he's on in the film, you just kind of you're automatically looking at him.
Yeah,
for sure. And then Tyler, you mentioned earlier that you were working on, or both of you were working on a TV series called The Last Spartan. What else can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's basically the Punisher meets Sons of Anarchy meets human trafficking is basically the breakdown of that. But I'll let Renee explain that a little bit. She's the synopsis one.
The Last Spartan is based on a book by John Saunders, loosely based on the original book, The Last Spartan. And it's the story of Frank Kane, who is an ex-enforcer for a motorcycle club. He's started a new life. It's been years since he's been out. He made a promise to somebody who helped him. Like, he owes a debt, and he's promised that he'll only do good from now on. And then he gets a call from somebody that he needs to help a girl who's been caught up in this dangerous underworld. And so he needs to do one last job. But as we all know, from all of the TV and movies we've watched, one last job is never just one last job. One last job just opens Pandora's box, and the whole old world comes flooding back in, plus new adventures.
Yeah, and we'd originally looked at it as just another feature film. But then as I was going through and traveling through the airport here in Atlanta, there's always the human trafficking alerts. And I thought, that is something that we could touch on, and we could do a reoccurring thing and possibly help people and bring awareness to this major problem.
Atlanta's a major hub for human trafficking, which I didn't know. And I know it became kind of a news item around the Super Bowl, the last Super Bowl in Atlanta, because they were educating Lyft drivers and was it Uber as well?
Yeah, I think it was Uber.
Both of them, but they were trying to educate the drivers on what to look for, because this is all coming into town for around this huge event. And I think Tyler and I were both really surprised and shocked and realized that there is this element in this book and in this film as we were envisioning it, but it's so big. We really wanted to explore it and show more about that world. Yeah, because it's a huge problem.
Wow, I had no idea that Atlanta was considered a hub for this awful problem around the world. Wow, that sounds really interesting. And so for people like myself that don't understand like how this whole thing starts from, you have this idea for a TV series, you have to pitch it, you have to get, well, how's the beginning part of this work in terms of the business end of things? I'm just curious.
Well, you figure out your pitch deck or your Bible of what you're wanting to do. You create the look that you see for this project. That is your first step. Then you're in the process of writing the scripts and coming up with the storylines and taking that out to people and hopefully getting interest. And I've spoken with some pretty top level people that are very interested in it, which is a good thing. Fingers crossed, and hopefully we go in the right direction. We've already got our first money in, and that's the biggest thing, is getting the investors and getting people to believe in it. Once you have that, then you've got the ball halfway up the hill, and then you have to figure out how to get up the rest of the hill and then down the other side. So that's where we're at right now with it.
I do think with any project, film, TV, comic book, any project these days, there is no one way you do it, right? It's just there's a bunch of puzzle pieces, and you try to figure out where your puzzle pieces are going to roughly land, and then you try to lock a couple pieces in and build from that. So.
And it's forever changing. It's
always,
it's the same thing like I get all the time. People are, well, how can I become an actor? Well, everybody gets into this business in a different way. I mean, I came into the business through, I as a kid wanted to be a pro wrestler. I wrestled professionally for 11 and a half years, and then realized that I was tired of getting dropped on my head and I needed to figure out something else, and then transitioned into the film. So that was my way in. RENAE is a legitimate theater major that came that way. So there's several different ways.
So what we've learned here is that the wrestling actually gets you further faster.
Well,
oh my goodness. Okay, well that's and you're right. I mean, I've covered all kinds of different local theater here. I've had a chance to talk to different film actors and TV people, and you're right. All of them get into the business different ways. They go out of the business, and sometimes they come back, and the reality sets into with bills and everything else and mortgages. So just to kind of you're doing the best you can with what you got, and kind of seeing what happens. And before we kind of get to the end of the interview, I just want to ask just in general, both of you, because I met you at Crypticon Seattle in 2013, and you've done the convention circuit, comic books, horror films, all of the above. What are some stories you can, or maybe a story, something that stands out? Because you've done so many conventions. There must be something that happened at one, or something happened at your table, at a panel. I'm just curious if there's something funny or just kind of interesting that you could tell the viewers out there.
Oh God, there's so many.
There's so many stories that are funny. There's so many stories that are like, wow. There's so many stories that are like, yeah, we can never talk about that.
Yeah, that's true.
If you would pick one, which one would you pick?
Probably, the funniest thing, like, because people will come up to me and ask me to sign just about anything, right? I've been asked to sign boobs, butts, all kinds of stuff of women. And
men.
No. And I had a kid come up to me and asked me to sign his Apple Core. And I was like, what is it? And I was like, Joe Dirt, the Apple Core.
How do you sign
And
that?
I'm like,
though?
how am I going to sign that? And he goes, oh yeah, I never thought of that. But that was the weirdest thing that I've had anybody ask me to sign. But I mean, you just come across all kinds of stuff. It's crazy, but it's fun. You know, I mean, it's the great thing about these conventions is people get to go out and enjoy themselves in a genre that they enjoy and love, and they get to see things that they don't normally see, and just have fun. And that's the best thing about it. You know, and that's what I love about it. And they're all different. I mean, like I've been to the Comic Cons, I've been to the horror cons, and the fans are just, I mean, equally amazing in all of these genres. So.
Okay. Renee, is there any story that comes off the top of your head?
Oh, there's so many. One. I guess, well, one that with Tyler and with where Tyler's involved, it's always interesting for me to be the wife of someone that other people, you know, get flustered being around. I get flustered being around him, but it's for totally different reasons. And
Doghouse.
and there was one day where someone actually got kind of hyperventilated. I think she may have been expecting even, I'm not sure, but she actually passed out and Tyler went basically over the table. And here's my husband like trying to help this fan. And I just thought, wow, that's it's just an interesting experience to see them.
About that one. That was.
I won't forget about that one.
Yeah, no, that's got to be not only memorable but traumatic. I mean, to see a fan obviously just topple over, for that, from being so flustered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know why. I mean, like I could see for Renee or something, but not me. But anyhow, I also wanted to just say too, I'm in an upcoming Netflix TV series.
Oh yeah.
Jupiter's Legacy by Mark Miller. Another comic book adaptation that I'm going to be coming out in probably the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So everybody watch out for that.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, is there anything else that you'd like to let the fans know out there before we wrap this up?
I just did. Go ahead.
And I also, I mean, aside from checking us out at mainentertainment.com and the films at penancelane.com and compoundfracturethemovie.com, I also am working with Darby Pop Publishing, and we do comic books, so come check out our stuff.
Awesome. Well, Tyler and Renee, thank you so much for taking the time lunchtime this morning for me. I had just a total pleasure talking with both of you and catching up. And yeah, everybody out there, definitely check out Penance Lane and Compound Fracture and all the other wonderful sounds I'm hearing over. But Tyler's been one of the best people to meet in person. So is Renee. They're as genuine as they come. And I wish you guys all the success in the world. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Wear your masks.
Wear your masks.
Yes.